sometimes when you record these podcasts too far ahead, you don't take into consideration what could possibly happen by the time this particular episode airs. Well, in this podcast, episode 15 of the Old Glory Games podcast, around the 46-minute mark, we talk about Caitlyn Clark and her potentially going to the Olympics. So we didn't know that she was going to get shafted by the committee, and we'll have another show about that. But around that time frame, take a listen to what could have been and how the WNBA, in what I would consider their racist oversight, missed out on, and how things could have been different, because quite frankly, I'm not going to be watching the Olympics much at all coming this summer. Anyway, enjoy this episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Old Glory Games podcast. This is episode 15, and I am Kyle, and I'm here with Greg, and here we are going to talk about probably one of the most dynamic personalities in sports in, I think, the last 3 or 4 years. What would you say, Greg, in terms of Caitlyn Clark?
I would agree. I would say she's a phenomenon. I really hadn't heard of her prior to last basketball season, but she has captured the hearts of a lot of people, and I'll admit I really haven't seen much of her as far as her playing. I really don't watch a lot of women's college basketball, but I will say that if there's somebody that would compel me to watch even a little bit of the women's national championship game, I will watch the last 6 or 7 minutes of it. That's doing something, because that's not something I would normally do. So I think she has had that effect on a lot of people that may not normally watch women's college basketball. I think she's created an interest and a frenzy that we quite frankly have not seen, or at least not seen in a long time. So I think what I just alluded to is referred to the Caitlyn Clark effect, as far as the interest that her play has generated as far as women's college basketball is concerned. So I decided to look up her stats. I think we pretty much all know that she broke the college basketball career scoring record. She scored 3,951 points. She grabbed 990 rebounds. She dished out 1,144 assists and had 74 blocks. During her senior season, her team sold out all of its home games for the first time in program history and set the women's basketball attendance record, 55,646, at a preseason exhibition game. Each team hosting Iowa during the regular season set an attendance record with an average attendance increase of 150%. And the 2024 Big Ten tournament sold out for the first time. During Caitlyn's final season at Iowa, regular season games featuring her became the most viewed women's basketball games of all time on 6 different networks. Her last regular season game, in which she surpassed Pete Maravich's Division I career scoring record, was the most watched regular season women's basketball game since 1999, as well as the second most watched college basketball game of the season, including men's games. At the 2024 NCAA tournament, Clark's final 3 games each broke the women's college basketball viewership record, culminating with 18.9 million viewers for the national championship game. It was the most viewed basketball game at any level since 2019, and the first women's NCAA tournament final to draw more viewers than the men's final. So that's just, yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of that I did not know. And so you can see the effect that she's had. And I watched a highlight reel of hers because I really hadn't seen her play before. And just from that clip, it was clear how she was head and shoulders better than everybody else on the floor. I mean, it was just very apparent. Her handle, her ability to pass, her shooting range. I mean, she's shooting logo 3-pointers with ease. And I'm like, wow. I mean, if this is a representative cross section of what her career has been, this is very impressive. So I can certainly understand the interest in her. And she's become a mainstream superstar. I mean, she was on Saturday Night Live. She's been on commercials. She's been, very visible. So to give you another indicator of her influence and her impact. So she was recently drafted by, I guess it was the Indiana Fever. So according to ESPN, viewership of the 2024 WNBA draft peaked at 3.09 million viewers. Before this last draft, the previous draft record was 600,000 viewers when Diana Taurasi was picked. So you can see,
She was good.
you can see the massive increase in interest. Because quite frankly, I didn't know when the WNBA draft was. I barely knew when the season was. So, but I certainly knew when this draft was because everybody was talking about it. So, when she declared for the WNBA draft, Indiana Fever's average ticket price doubled. And other teams across the league have seen bumps in ticket sales. Her jersey sold out in most sizes on the Fanatics website within an hour of her being selected in the draft. Her jersey is the top-selling jersey for any draft pick ever, and the WNBA plans to show 36 of the 40 Indiana Fever's regular season games nationally. Also, as I said, ticket prices are skyrocketing as far as WNBA tickets, and it's prompting teams in several cities to move their games to bigger venues when she comes to town. So again, you can see the impact and the excitement she has created for women's college basketball and also the WNBA, which quite frankly has not done a lot as far as viewership and interest. So kudos to her. I mean, I wish I had been aware of her sooner, but I think she's a phenomenon that's here to stay unless she just totally bombs in the WNBA. I think any level of success she has there will create a boon for that league, which quite frankly has struggled mightily during its 30-year existence. So what are your thoughts on Miss Clark?
Well, let me preface, I got a lot to say here, but let me preface by saying I have been, and it's kind of funny, Greg, I can say that I've been a fan of women basketball for years. In fact, let me show you something right here on what I have right here. This is a DVD that I had to find. It's a rare DVD. It's the national championship game of 2006, Maryland versus Duke. It was 78 to 75. It's a game where there was a 3-pointer to tie at the last minute and the buzzer beater to get into overtime. It was a fantastic game. And I watched the Maryland Terrapins, who had won the championship that year. They played Duke the following year at Cameron Indoor Stadium in Durham.
My buddy came down from Maryland, who's an alumni from University of Maryland. He and his wife and I went to see, actually Duke beat Maryland in that game, but Maryland was ranked number 1 in the country and Duke was number 2 in the country. And I saw it at Cameron Indoor Stadium. It was a fantastic game for the Duke fans, not for me. Duke came out and played. But my point is that I follow women's basketball. Of course, this is pre-COVID and all that. But once things started getting woke and once things started getting, I don't need no man, give me the rock, give me the rock, give me the rock, all of this, whatever, I lost interest. So when I saw Caitlyn Clark doing her thing and coming up in the news, I was very cynical for the reasons I thought maybe she was a certain way. And because I knew they were going to prop her up over Pete Maravich, which we actually have a show in the can, Greg, that you and I did about a month ago that's going to air pretty soon. We're going to talk about Pistol Pete and breaking the record and giving him some homage and so forth. It's a really good show. It's a really fascinating gentleman. So you'll see that coming up. Actually, by the time this airs, you would have already seen that. So just to get to what you said here, Greg, just to get to what you said about Caitlyn. Now, the first thing I thought about was you mentioned her and the phenomenon that she has presented everyone, which I had no idea how big it was. You're reading these numbers off to me, and I'm like, holy smokes, this chick. And then, before I get to my point, I actually did watch a few games toward the end, and I thought she was just one of these people who got the rock, spotted up, and jacked the three, and that was it. And that was me being ignorant and not being ignorant. When I watched her play against a superior team like South Carolina, or in fact, every team she played against was superior, let's just be clear, especially in the tournament toward the end, she moves without the ball extremely well. She's very smart, very poised. Lets the game come to her. She can jack the three, of course, but she has a mid-range jumper. She can go left, she can go right. She's got it all, and she's tall, and she's a leader on the floor. Now, her dad got on her one time about her yapping. He told her, chill out, shut up. He told her, and if you watch the clip on YouTube, his dad was checking her, so I think she's the whole package. And I think when she gets in the WNBA, I think she's going to be just fine. And to my point, what you had said about all of this, I could only stop thinking about Tiger Woods. And think about when in the 90s, when Tiger Woods came up, and you talk about the criticisms that Caitlyn was getting, or is getting. Tiger got him too. Why you talk about Tiger? Tiger this, Tiger that, Tiger this, Tiger this. Never mind that he won like 4 majors in a row. At one point, he had all majors at one time, I believe. It wasn't the same year. But Tiger, in 90, was it 90, what year it was? 96, 7 in there? No, whatever year it was, 2000, whatever it was. He had a magic year. We had all the majors at one time. But the thing was, he raised the level of golf to the point where everybody was getting paid. And I was whole captain at the Williams Championship in Greensboro, heavily involved in golf, so I know a lot about the sport. I got a chance to see Tiger tee off a few years back. And even though he wasn't doing that much, because it's post everything else, he won that I'm not sure what major he won post-accident Thanksgiving, where he got, with his wife and everything. He kind of went into remission. But he won a major sometime after that, and he teed off here in Greensboro, and everyone came to see him tee off at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was like he wasn't even ranked highly anymore. But because of that, everyone was benefiting because they were showing up to go see him play. And to your point, Greg, these people need to get on board immediately. And like you said ride it out as long as they possibly can, because they can get paid. Embrace it. Stop looking at this whole identity politics. Well, she's white, or she's straight, or she's this, or she's that. Take advantage of it and get paid. And so I think I covered my other point here about Pistol Pete Maravich. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm astonished by how talented she really is. She's not one that just jacks threes. That's not her. Because if that was the case, she wouldn't have scored so many points. She has other parts of her game that makes it pretty much impossible to guard her. Choose your poison. And so kudos to her. And hopefully WNBA will, and I hate, it's funny because I'm not a big fan of the WNBA. They're subsidized and all that stuff, but I have to kind of support this woman. I mean, for what she's going against and the counter narrative that she's presenting and raising the sport. I mean, that's what this country's all about. So what are your thoughts? Anything else to add to her impact or maybe the Olympics that she's trying to qualify for? Did you hear about that?
I will say that, and I think to go back to my previous point, her raising an awareness to not only herself and her talent, but to the sport of women's basketball as a whole, I think her potential and her ability to make the most casual of fans interested in women's basketball, that's a big thing. Because for me, my oldest daughter is my favorite women's basketball player, and she played in high school and she played AAU. And, once she stopped playing after high school, I really didn't watch it at all until my youngest two kids started going to college, and I pulled for their women's basketball team, and I'm a fan of that team for sure. But in general, I don't really watch a lot of women's basketball. So if someone like Caitlyn Clark can compel me to turn it on to at least see what all of this buzz and excitement is about, I mean, that's a big deal, because if she can get people like me to tune in to watch her, even in the WNBA, and I'm even less interested in the WNBA than I would be in women's college basketball. So if she can compel somebody like me to tune in and see, how she's doing or how she did and that kind of thing, it's like I said in a previous episode, that's how my mom was with Michael Jordan. She didn't care anything about the NBA in general, but she was interested when Jordan and the Bulls were on. I think Caitlyn Clark has the potential to be that kind of figure for women's, not only just women's college basketball, but women's professional basketball as well. So I don't think this is a fad or anything else like that, because there is a concerted effort by the networks and the media and other folks to get women's basketball in front of more eyeballs than it is today. And I get it. But I think Caitlyn Clark will certainly help in that effort, and more power to her. And I think that goes along the lines of, and I know we'll discuss this in another episode, but people were up in arms about what her rookie salary is going to be in the WNBA, and why don't they get paid like the men? Well, look at the disparity in revenue. The WNBA has been around for 30 years, and they've never turned a profit. They've lost money every single year they've been in existence. The NBA owns 50% of the WNBA. They subsidize the WNBA, and the NBA revenue, they make billions. The WNBA makes millions. And again, they don't turn a profit at all. So that is why there's the disparity in salaries. But if Caitlyn Clark is the draw that I think she is and can be, that can change. If more people watch, if more people buy gear, if more people go to the games, if more people talk about it, then revenue can increase. And then at some point, you'll probably see those salaries go up. And again, I think she'll be in the lead, because think about it. I don't know how many years she signed as far as a contract, but let's say at the end of her deal, she goes, well, I'm the face of the league. I'm the reason why people are tuning in. I want, let's say, I don't know, I want a couple $1 million a year, which is a lot for the WNBA. I don't know that anybody's making that much money. I could be wrong, but let's say she wants way more than anybody in the league is currently making per season. I want to get it, or I'm going to go overseas and play. Now what? You know, the WNBA would have a decision to make as far as, okay, are we going to be able to pay her? We can't afford to lose her because she is a lot of the reason why people are tuning in. What do we do at that point? She could force the league's hand, and I think, you know, some other salaries may come along with it as far as the increase, but I think she has, I said all that to say this, I think she has the potential and the ability to put the league on its back and bring them to a different phase, the next level as far as viewership and revenue. If you think about the NBA back in 1977, 78, 79, before Bird and Magic came along, the league was at a pretty low point. And the finals were, they put the finals on tape delay. Seriously. No, I remember as a kid, you know, wanting to watch the NBA finals. And I think CBS was the network that were showing NBA games at that time. CBS felt like a TV movie of the week would get higher ratings than the NBA finals. So they put the finals on tape delay, and you had to watch the finals at 11 o'clock at night. Here comes Bird and Magic, and it really pulls the NBA into, you know, a higher level of visibility and a different phase where now the league is successful and arenas are selling out and people are watching the playoffs and the finals. And they're a big reason for that. And I can see Caitlyn Clark maybe being able to do the same thing for the WNBA, maybe on not quite as big a scale, but I mean, the WNBA can basically only go up at this point because, again, they're not even making money; they're losing money every year. So anything she could do to help the league be self-sufficient, help them start making a profit, help them be a viable business venture, so more business people are willing to start new franchises and that kind of thing. So I think she has the potential to be able to open up the WNBA to all of these different types of things. You know, if she stays healthy and she does reasonably well in the league.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm glad you brought up Magic and Bird because those were the ones who are attributed, and I think everyone agrees with this, but basically got the NBA to where it is. Well, I think Jordan got to where it is now, but it got it out of the basement, right? Now, no longer are they going to do tape delays. Now it's like real time. I mean, must watch TV. I remember watching Bird and Magic. I couldn't stand Bird back in the day. I love him now, but I couldn't stand Bird. You know, you were one or the other. And if you watch the movie, Do the Right Thing, you know, it that's came out, I think, in the 80s, Spike Lee. And there was a guy who had a Bird jersey, and this is, I'm not sure if it was Harlem or Brooklyn where this was filmed, but that had a sentiment of what was going on at the time with Bird and Magic and the Lakers and the Celtics. So one of the things I'm thinking about right now about Caitlyn Clark is that because the WNBA is looked at as, it's funny when I even mentioned that I followed the WNBA, like Elena Delle Donne, who was the Mystics captain who won the championship with them. I followed them as well when they won prior to COVID. It's hard to even say it without getting lampooned and laughed at. It's like, but I enjoy watching them play. It was a really good team, and they played well. I like watching good basketball. I don't care if it's at a lower level YMCA versus NBA, if you can find a good NBA game these days. But if it's good spacing, if it's good, teamwork, if it's good defense, if people learn the concept of boxing out every now and then whatever. It's why I love Dennis Rodman and guys like that who would dive for the ball. John Thompson told us when I was at a basketball camp, dive for the ball. I don't care what's going on. And so that was the mentality that we had. So, and the fact that she can be on SNL, that's a cross media type of deal there. The fact that she can go on a major entertainment platform and do that, it's similar to what they did with the WrestleMania when they brought in Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T and those people from a different part of culture into this to elevate all of the WWF in wrestling. And so who knows how this can work, but even at a small scale, it's way better what the WNBA has now. So Greg, I want your opinion on this particular article. It's from Western Journal. This particular journalist got mad because another journalist who was Black praised Caitlyn Clark. And I'll leave it here on the screen. I don't have to read it, but essentially, people are getting upset with Caitlyn Clark because she is coming into a league which is predominantly Black, and she is becoming the face of this particular league. And of course, we're dealing with a woke culture, identity politics culture, where everything has to be a certain way, it's political, and people are offended if you look a different way. And what do you think challenges that she's going to see from this kind of stuff? It's a petty kind of argument here. You can see it on the screen here. I'm not going to read it. But what do you think she's going to be up against in this new woke identity politics, highly combative election season agenda? What do you think she has in store for her? And do you think she can overcome that and win people over, at least her own teammates?
Yes, and I've seen the same comments as far as this particular instance you're speaking of, as far as the criticism that the journalist got for praising Caitlyn Clark. I think the context of it, and I didn't see the interview or hear it, but from what I've read, Steven Jackson took issue with Gayle King praising Caitlyn Clark while she was interviewing Dawn Staley. And Steven Jackson's beef was, well, why would you, quote unquote, disrespect? And I think that word is used way too much. But why would you disrespect? And I don't think it was disrespectful. Why would you so-called disrespect Dawn Staley by mentioning Caitlyn Clark when Dawn Staley's team were the ones that won the national championship? So that criticism is tinged with racial overtones. And I think that is a shame, because Steven Jackson went on to say that Gayle King is not Black media because she praised Caitlyn Clark while talking to Dawn Staley. That is absolutely ridiculous and childish. But unfortunately, there are probably pockets of people that have that type of mentality and attitude when it comes to somebody like Caitlyn Clark. Now, Steven Jackson went on to say that he didn't have anything against Caitlyn Clark, but he just felt like somehow Gayle King was being disrespectful to Dawn Staley, and I don't agree with that at all. I think the challenge Caitlyn Clark will face, I think initially it won't necessarily be just about race, but it will also be about this newcomer to the league. She's not even done anything, and already she's getting more attention than the established players in the league. And who does she think she is? And just the resentment at that level, not necessarily just along racial lines, but from, and I think there's a little bit of jealousy there as well, because, and you see it in a lot of different sports when rookies come in and they make such a big splash and they get more money and more attention than the veterans. So she'll see that. But going back to the racial overtones, I think initially she may deal with that. I hope she doesn't, but I think there may be some pushback at that level. But I feel like if you are a player in the WNBA and you're tired of playing, in half empty arenas, and you're tired of not having your games watched by a lot of people, and you're tired of not having the same type coverage as the NBA, and you're tired of, and I say only in air quotes, making, maybe $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, which, for normal folks, we can make do with that. But, depending on their situations, maybe not so well. But if you want to be able to potentially make more money at a game that you love and once upon a time you played for free, then whatever reservations you have about Caitlyn Clark from, her just being an up-and-comer and a rookie, to something else along racial lines, you need to put all that aside. Not only for your benefit, but for the league's benefit, because, okay, where else are you going to go if the WNBA somehow fails? Now, I don't think the NBA will let it fail, but let's say at some point the WNBA has to stand on its own 2 feet. If that failed, what would you do? Not everybody can go overseas and play basketball. There's not another viable women's professional basketball league in this country that I know of. So what are you going to do if the league does not succeed? So whatever hangups you have about Caitlyn Clark, for whatever reasons, you need to put them over here, and you need to take advantage and benefit and support her. I mean, you don't have to be a vocal supporter of her, but don't be an impediment to her. I get it. You want to go out there and prove, well, she's not as great as people think. Great. That means you'll up your game to try to prove people wrong. Good. Have a competitive rivalry type situation going on with her, but to make it personal and some of these other things that are going on that are rooted in resentment and jealousy. If you are all about the good of women's sports and women's basketball, then you need to get behind Caitlyn Clark. And I think, again, the challenges she'll face will be along those lines, from veterans that resent the attention she's getting when she's not played in the league at all yet, and from those that may resent her along racial lines, somehow thinking that when someone of a different ethnicity wins, then I lose. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. Caitlyn Clark is not there to take from you. Caitlyn Clark is there to play basketball at the highest level and be successful at it. She's not there to take anything from you. As a matter of fact, her being there is going to benefit you. Don't be foolish. Don't get in the way of it. be a part of it. And I hope that's what happens. But yeah, I think she'll see challenges, but she's got such widespread mainstream appeal that I think she'll overcome all of those obstacles. And I think she'll thrive in the WNBA, and the WNBA will benefit. How much, it's hard to say, but it's already benefited the WNBA. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
quite frankly, so I think things are looking up for her and things are looking up for the league. But, the so-called haters, I mean, they need to get over it. I mean, I think she's here to stay. And if you truly want women's professional sports in general, and more specifically women's professional basketball, to thrive and do better, you need to be in Caitlyn Clark's corner and not actively
I think it was cool you said that
be against her.
I think it's cool you said that your favorite women's basketball player of all time is your daughter. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. I'm her biggest fan.
In fact, I would say the same thing about that as well. I would much rather root for her than anyone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, because so yeah, I remember what I was going to say before, and when you have anything that's tailored to one group, you're alienating a lot of other people. And so if you can get conservatives, even a smaller percentage of conservatives, to come over to watch WNBA games, that's going to be a huge boon for the industry. And I think maybe that will lessen some of the attacks we're seeing on conservatives, because at the end of the day, the bottom line is the bottom line. You mentioned about a sort of a zero-sum game. If she wins, I lose kind of thing. That's not how it really works, based on what you were saying before, because at the end of the day, it helps for everyone to be able to make that money, as I mentioned before with Tiger Woods, because he raised viewership, and that viewership got shared amongst the people who are participating, mainly the players. And so everybody got paid. So it kind of goes to the philosophy of Adam Smith, a founding father, so to speak. He's actually from England, I guess, but he is the father of economics. And it's like this whole thing that capitalism, where rich get richer and people get poorer, that's not how it works. You're actually exchanging something. If I go to a store, I buy something, I give that person money, I get something. Everyone wins. And that's what I see here, is that everyone can possibly win if she comes in here and does this, if people have the right kind of attitude and don't try to tear her down. You mentioned injuries. That's a big deal. She can't get injured. She has to continue on. But she got a big deal with Nike, and I don't know what the specifics are there, but it seems like she's going to be okay. It looks like she's not going to be eating ramen noodles. So she's going to be fine there. And I think the WNBA is definitely going to benefit. Look, I'm going to watch the first game. I'm intrigued now, only because I've been, paying more attention to it. And I just wish she played for Washington. Oh, well. So let me read this article real quick. Just first, I'm gonna read. Let me read this first, and now that I'll get your take on it, and then we'll wrap up with her Olympics bid. She's trying to try out for the Olympics in Paris. So let me just read the first paragraph here, Greg, and get your take on this, and then we can kind of move on after that. So this article is from a outlet called the Indiana Daily Student. The column is, Caitlyn Clark has revolutionized women's basketball and inspired generations. This is from a few days ago. This is from April 12th. I'm going to read this and get your take on this, Greg. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can actually read along. In an era where individuals can shape entire domains, Caitlyn Clark has emerged as a revolutionary force in women's basketball, igniting a transformative wave that has bolstered the sport's viewership. You got that right. Based on the facts you just said, Greg, it's in ridiculously bolstered. Respect
Absolutely.
and fan base. Yeah, it's insane what you read. I couldn't believe it. Respect and fan based. Dubbed the quote Caitlyn Clark Effect, unquote. Her impact echoes the legendary tales of sports icons. Okay, are they laying it on thick or what? Yet it carves a unique legacy, particularly in women's basketball, from the collegiate level to the WNBA. this is an article from Molly Joseph of this outlet. It kind of says what you said, Greg. Do you think it could be that huge from what they're trying to paint here?
I absolutely do. And I think that people like me who are, like I mentioned, less than casual fans of women's basketball as a whole, people are looking for a reason to watch the WNBA. And a lot of people who don't watch say, well, it's not very exciting. And, there's not all of the high impact plays like you see in the NBA, like dunks and that sort of thing. But a lot of people are waiting for a good reason to watch. And I think Caitlyn Clark represents that reason, at least from a curiosity perspective. I mean, heck, I may even watch her first game. I mean, just to see how she does, how she's received, how the announcers treat her, how the league treats her as a whole, because I think this goes beyond women's basketball. I think she has the opportunity to be a bit of a cultural icon. And, I think we mentioned before, she was on SNL. She's been on commercials. To have somebody like her that, little girls can look up to and say, hey, I can be just like Caitlyn Clark. I can, make it to the WNBA. I can be on the Olympic team, and those types of aspirations, where before, I'm not saying girls didn't aspire to play professional basketball, but I don't know that their aim was so intense as far as I've got to make it to the WNBA. That's my dream. I'm not saying girls didn't aspire to that before, but I'm telling you, more will aspire to do that now. And I think you can point to Caitlyn Clark for that. So I think the possibilities are just about endless for her. If things fall into the right places, if she stays healthy, if she continues, the way she's been playing, I think she will definitely be a difference maker and a trendsetter. And I think we'll see an interest in women's basketball like you've not seen up to this point. Now, I can remember, and you can probably remember too, I think the last talent that I've seen like this, that everybody was talking about and everybody was saying she's going to be the next big thing, was Cheryl Miller. Now, if I recall correctly, Cheryl Miller scored like 100 points in a high school game, and her brother's Reggie Miller, and she would beat him like a drum when they played one-on-one. And Reggie said that helped make him a better basketball player. But yeah, she dominated him. That's how good she was. And her game looked more like
she could dunk.
A man's game. Yeah.
She could dunk.
And I'm not dismissing any of the other women's ability, but she looked like she could compete with the men. And she was the it factor back then. But unfortunately, I think she experienced some injuries and
there.
Yeah. And I don't think the opportunities for her as far as professional basketball were the same as they are now. So I think Cheryl Miller may have come along maybe a little bit too early. But as far as hoopla, that's what I like in Caitlyn Clark too. What I remember as far as the hoopla around Cheryl Miller, and hopefully Caitlyn won't experience the same challenges that Cheryl did as far as injuries and not being able to fulfill the same type of pro career that she did in college. But, you know, I'm actually pulling for Caitlyn Clark. I hope she does well. And I think it would be for not only her good, but for the good of women's professional basketball and college, for that matter, in this country.
I'll tell you one thing, that Cheryl Miller basketball team, 1984 gold medal women's team, was absolutely unbeatable. Now
they were loaded.
They were playing in a boycotted Moscow Eastern European bloc year because of, you know, whatever, but they would have beat anybody that year. It wouldn't have mattered. And I think she actually dunked in a game, I believe.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think she was the first one to legitimately do that. So I'll wrap it up here because I want to just say this, because by the time this airs, this is going to air somewhere around the Olympics. We're putting so many in the can right now that this will probably air somewhere about a month prior to the Olympics this summer. And so this particular article is speaking to that. This is from the AP. Caitlyn Clark's early play in WNBA will be her tryout for a roster spot on the U.S. women's Olympic team. And it's not a big article, but basically the women's roster for the Paris Games won't be determined before June 1st. Unable to attend the U.S. training camp this month, Clark will have the start of her WNBA career to show. Come on, she's already better than everybody in the WNBA. Let's just say it. U.S. basketball. I mean, whether she deserves a spot or not. Now, Elena Delle Donne, a healthy Elena Delle Donne, who played for the Mystics, she was absolutely the best player in the league, but she was hampered by injuries left and right. That chick was unstoppable. So, but outside of someone like her, a healthy Elena Delle Donne, I mean, there's not many that can be a touch her kind of skills. That he's also younger as well. But we're gonna wrap this particular show up, Greg. But I want you to talk about the Olympics in Paris, and given what we just said, paint a picture. Best case scenario, Caitlyn Clark is on the Olympics, and how that could expand all of this, because we're so happy with the World Cup with the team. I think it was 91, I believe. You know, Amia Hamm and those guys, Christine Chastain and those guys, all that, how that elevated women's soccer. Paint a picture here of what could happen, we could see this summer if and when Caitlyn Clark makes the Olympic team, and I'll let you close this out.
Sure. So I think as far as representing our country and playing for our team in the Olympics in Paris, let's be honest, the past few Olympics, for different reasons, have not been something that we as Americans were particularly interested in watching. The women's national soccer team had a lot to do with that, to have Americans actually root against them, because they, and this is my opinion, they got to be arrogant. They put other agendas ahead of the game and the playing of the game. It put a lot of bad taste in people's mouths. And I think now Caitlyn, and I don't want to put the weight of everything associated with this on her shoulders, but that's kind of what I'm saying. She has an opportunity to turn that around to where, okay, now we can get behind our teams again. She represents kind of a fresh start as far as that is concerned. She's going to make people want to watch. She's going to make people pull for the U.S. again, and not just the women's team, but probably all the teams, if I dare say. So I think she has opportunity for people to hear, to really be interested and intrigued with the Olympics again, because I'll admit I've not even been that interested in the Olympics the past couple of the Olympics. I don't think I watched any basketball these last Olympics. I just I just don't, just the egos and the agendas of a lot of the players just kind of turn me off. I think she can help turn that perception around, and I hope she does. I want to watch and root for her and the women's team, and as well as the men's team. And it's a shame that we've been put in the position where we feel like we can't root for them because of their behavior and their attitudes and that kind of thing. So I think she has an opportunity to make people forget about that, at least at that moment. And I'm looking forward to it. She has the opportunity to just be the overall feel-good story of this entire year if she goes over there and leads the women to a gold medal and does it in the type fashion that we saw with the Dream Team and some of those other fantastic Olympic squads, the 76 men's boxing team, and you can go on and on as far as the different teams that we've seen over the years that have captivated us as fans and as Americans. So I feel like she has the opportunity to do the same sorts of things in the Olympics. And again, I think the sky's the limit for her. And also from a global perspective. So if she goes over there and captivates audiences from around the world, because the world will be watching, as they say, and grow interest globally in the WNBA, it can only help the WNBA. So I know she's got a lot of expectations on her shoulders, but I think from the few times I've seen her, she seems to be well-grounded. You mentioned her father basically telling her to knock it off when she was complaining about the officiating in one game.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, so it sounds like she's well-grounded as far as how she was raised. Just from that interaction, I think we can maybe make that assumption, but she seems to be well-grounded, and I think she can handle it. I think she's ready to take that mantle and lead women's basketball into a new era where more people than ever are interested and will be watching. So I'm actually now that you've mentioned it, I'm actually looking forward to watching them in the Olympics, just to see how she does and how we do and what type of impact it has for us as a country and globally, because this could be bigger than either you or I would have imagined.
Quick correction. It was not 1991. That was actually their first World Cup. 1999 at the Rose Bowl. And I said Christine Chastain. I meant Brandy Chastain, NBA Ham. That team elevated women's soccer to another level. And they did it the right way.
I agree.
So, all right. So I think we did a good job on this topic, and we're going to stop this. We're going to do another one later on about the so-called pay gap, that's a whole other thing. We're not going to talk about it here. Future show, we'll talk about the so-called pay gap with WNBA. It's funny to even say it. For now, we're going to leave it here. My name is Kyle. We are on Spotify and YouTube. And also, guys, if you have any questions, we're going to be answering questions on the shows going forward. Email us at podcast@theconservativetake.com. That's podcast@theconservativetake.com. Or leave a comment in one of the videos, and we will see that there, and we will respond to it in an upcoming video. And for Greg and myself, we will see you guys in the next one.
Take care. God bless.